Endless online searches, trekking from dealer to dealer. But here it is, the Volvo XC90. A luxury SUV that emphasises convenience and comfort. A panoramic roof, advanced air purifier, a head-up display that changes to suit light conditions, an air suspension system that ensures a smooth ride by constantly adjusting the ride height and shock absorbers. Now at special run-out pricing from $99,990 plus on-roads. Visit Volvo Cars and discover why the Volvo XC90 is the vehicle for right now.
You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from News Talk ZB.
On News Talk ZB, extraordinary game of football in the A-League at Go Media Stadium, Mount Smart yesterday between Auckland FC and Adelaide United. Late in the game, Hiroki Sakai, Auckland FC's captain, scored a goal that took Auckland FC into a 4-3 lead. This was, I think, in the second or third minute of added time. And it looked as though Auckland FC would steal all 3 points. Not steal them, but take all 3 points in a 7-goal thriller. But there was more to come.
Still there! Still there! And another chapter has been written. And Bart Breens has fired home from close range. And the energy sucked out of this ground as one important defender scored the goal he thought would give his side victory. The Dutchman, Bart Breens, scores the 8th goal of an incredible A-League match and brings it back to 4-4.
Yeah, 4-4 the final score. Let's bring in former All White striker Noel Barkley, who's been a keen observer of Auckland FC in their maiden season and has always had a very good footballing brain. Noel, thanks for joining us. Let's start with what happened during the game yesterday. Having led 2-0, 3-1 and 4-3 late on, would Auckland FC coach Steve Corica see this as 2 points dropped?
Well, I think anybody with an Auckland perspective would see it as a points drop. I mean, after the game, in my group of peers, everybody was completely down. It felt like a loss. We had to keep reminding ourselves that we actually drew with the second best team in the league. So it felt awful yesterday. It just was a bit of a killer the way it happened. But, the game had absolutely everything that you would want in a game. Lots of goals, an absolute worldie with my poor defending for both teams, really, for a couple of the goals. A game that you were on the edge of the seat. Some sort of controversy around the penalties, and there's some discussion around that, obviously. But look, what an advert for the A-League. Even the Australians must be starting to think Auckland's a good thing for the league, because they certainly up in the attendances and the eyeballs, and everything's good about it. And great to see the best two teams in the league.
Yeah, no, the narrative coming out of Australia yesterday was exactly that. They were as captivated by it as we all were, and probably from a neutral's point of view, it's a lot easier to be so rather than being a fan of one of the teams. Auckland FC's a team, Noel, that's been built on the best defence in the comp. So how disappointed will they be that they let 4 goals in and let those leads slip?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could blame them for all 4 goals, because I mean they did get 2 penalties, and yes, they were soft, but there's certainly contact here and there, and just the defending in the last goal was just absolutely terrible. So they'll be gutted, because that is their mainstay, and they're not big goal scorers, although we've got 10 in the last 2 games and sort of refute that. But over the season, they've really sort of been 1-0, 2-0, and goal very late in the game. So they're not prolific, apart from lately. So they'll be gutted, and they'll be destroyed at given so many goals. So I think at 3-1, they thought the game was over. I'm not sure what's happened with Max Mata and whether he's injured. They took him off last week, and that was fine, because it was a walkover. But yesterday at 3-1, that game was far from over. 55 minutes to take away your sort of main focal point up front was a bit of a strange one for me. I can only presume there's something else going on there.
Yeah, I wonder about Max Mata and whether he's carrying an injury. But you like that change in formation with Max Mata, Gijumo Mai. They've been paired together up top for Auckland FC in the last few games. But earlier in the season, Noel, it was Mai up top by himself with sort of more wide wingers like Gillian and Rogerson and Bruma behind. You like the two-pronged attack that Max Mata brings?
Yeah, I think so. Well, it's brought the best out in Mai because he's better facing goal than back to goal. He's got a terrific shot, and Max. I mean, Max run his guts off. Rogerson's another one. They just put themselves about and they make it really difficult for defenders. They work really hard, and they're both popping up with the odd goal. And that it's definitely been a bit of a change, and it's brought the best out in Mai. And really sort of become more of an attacking team. The first early on games we were sort of scratching wins. So yeah, look, it's interesting making those subs at 55 minutes because the game's not over, especially against a team like Adelaide. I think I saw it again this morning and I had a bit of a different perspective. I think the disappointment took over yesterday, but Adelaide played fabulous in the second half. I probably didn't see that yesterday. I was so gutted, but they played great and they really, really took it to Auckland and they put themselves in situations where things happened and goals happened and penalties and stuff like that. So fair play to them and definitely a great side, and they'll be stronger when they get their under-20 Socceroos back. Indeed.
Let's talk about the penalties. Steve Corica said afterwards he thought both were soft. You've had a look back at them this morning. Do you have a view?
Yes, they're soft. The first penalty, absolutely he gets touched. What I can't understand is why VAR intervened, because the referee is 5 yards behind it and clearly made a decision that the contact wasn't big enough. But of course, once VAR interrupts, he's got to back VAR. So that in the end, I'd say that's a penalty. The second one, I just don't really know what happened there. The pictures didn't really show me enough contact. I have more problem with the second penalty because there was a foul on the halfway line, which they just ignored and they clearly didn't go back and look at. And a lot of people are complaining about that, and that would be my issue. The penalty, the second one, it's hard to argue because obviously he's got a little touch and he goes down and they get a penalty. But I would have liked VAR to go back and have a look at what happened before. Which they certainly did for the first penalty. They took it back. But anyway, look, not everybody's going to bitch about the penalties, and it's over now. It was a cracking game, a fantastic advert for the A-League. If Auckland can just keep going on and, home semi-final, maybe a home final, it's going to be fantastic for football in New Zealand right round. And, we still want the Phoenix to be there and competitive and so on. So I take no joy in seeing them in their current situation. We want two strong teams in New Zealand, and the sooner they get back to that, the better.
How do you think Auckland FC have so quickly built such a passionate following, Nola? It's the best ticket in town on match day, isn't it? And all of the replica shirts, all the community engagement. My goodness me, there was a circus there yesterday. What are they doing so well?
Engagement with all the different groups, the port, whether it's families, whether it's kids in the playground, in the lounges, all different categories. The ownership group are there. Anna and Ali are always there. CEO Nick Becker's walking around shaking everybody's hand. It's a family thing. They've created something that we all hope that we would see one day in New Zealand. And you have this fanatical group of fans, support expanding week by week, who, young guys and girls and kids on the periphery. It's just fantastic. I think it's just, we all had this vision that, many, many years ago that we would have something like this. And it's like a steamroller at the minute. It just doesn't seem to stop. And they've got relatively easy games in the next 3 games. And I think getting that number one home semi-final is so important. I wouldn't really want to be going to play Adelaide away in a final. And maybe I'm jumping ahead too much, but it's hard not to.
Oh, I think you're right. No, you look at the table. The point they got yesterday leaves an 8-point buffer back to Adelaide United and Western United, who have played one more game. 8 points is a lot to make up in 8 games. It feels to me as though Auckland FC have one hand on the Premier's plate, as they call it. Is that how you see it?
Well, I think so. Those games I've got coming up is sort of Newcastle, Brisbane, and Central Coast. Although be it 2 of those away, so they're winnable games. If they can sort of win 2 of those and draw one, I think that's them across the line. They've got a couple of tough ones. We've got Sydney away and Melbourne victory away, I think. So yeah, they can afford a loss here and there. I think those 3 teams, Western, Adelaide and Auckland, are just a bit above the rest. I think the winner will come out of those 3 and Western have already shown that they can come to Go Media Stadium and win. So, yeah, they're the three top teams. Sydney, Melbourne teams not really firing this time round, and that's a great thing for New Zealand football. It's absolutely, truly amazing. And of course, next year you got the girls coming in, and you got a development team coming in. That's really just going to expand the fan base, and very exciting.
Yeah, indeed. Well, it wouldn't be a great surprise to see a grand final featuring the two teams we saw out there on Go Media yesterday. And I don't think you get too many arguments about it if that was a game that we saw a bit later on in the season. Noel, great to get your expertise. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Pleasure, Piney, anytime.
Good on you, mate. That's Noel Barkley, former all-white striker. And as you can hear from that, pretty astute observer of the game of football. So next up for Auckland FC, they are away next weekend, next Sunday night. They take on the Newcastle Jets and then back home to their fortress of Go Media Stadium, although it creaked a little bit yesterday. The Central Coast Mariners on Sunday, March the 16th. As far as the table is concerned, 8 points clear. Auckland FC at the top. Western United are in second and Adelaide United in third place. They've both got 32 points, those two teams. So an 8-point lead with 8 games left to play. As I said to Noel, it feels like it is Auckland FC's to lose now, the minor premiership anyway. They go into playoffs after that. But, just some signs yesterday of not being able to hold that lead. Steve Corica afterwards was most disappointed about that, as he was with the 2 penalties that were awarded against his side. But it's all part of the roller coaster that is sporting fandom.
For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to News Talk ZB weekends from midday or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.
For a few years in the 1970s, the Mr. Asia Syndicate made millions.
Heroin creates its own market. It acts like a form of plague.
Until jealousy, betrayal, and murder brought it all crashing down.
Clark would have threatened him. Go and kill him. If you don't, I'm going to kill you and your wife and your son.
This is Mr. Asia, a forgotten history. Listen to episode 4 now on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts.